Hey everybody, Mike and Moose here. You know, mold lines can ruin an otherwise great build, but you don't need expensive tools to get rid of them. Today I'll show you a number of budget ways to remove mold lines with tools you probably already have. That's coming up next on Modeling with Mike. Alright, welcome back, and let's start this video by discussing why mold lines happen and why getting rid of them improves realism. Mold lines happen because basically in the mold process, the mold is usually two pieces that come together, and then the molten plastic is injected into these two parts. After the molten plastic goes in there, it is followed by air, which forces the plastic to the walls of these two halves of the mold. And that is followed by cold water, which cools off the plastic and hardens it in these cavities, thus creating your part. Now, as this is happening, a lot of times a very small amount of plastic seeps out of these cavities and onto the flat part of the mold. And that creates a mold line. Okay? Now, why removing them improves realism? Well, when's the last time you saw a car fender or a car door with a line running through it? Just a line running through it. They don't exist. You know, most of the time it's just one smooth piece. Same thing goes in modeling. You're doing a replication. Thus, getting rid of these mold lines improves the realism. All right, now that we've discussed that, we'll turn around. I'll turn off the camera, we'll turn around, and I will show you a few different ways, budget ways of getting rid of mold lines. So we'll be right back. All right, and welcome back to the bench. And the first budget method we'll show you is the hobby knife scrape. Just need a regular hobby knife like this, and I'm going to show you on a seam line because I got these parts off my Mercury 1949 Mercury sedan kit that I'm going to build for the Gallery World Creator Cup competition. And these have seam lines right here, but basically seam lines are the same thing as mold lines. It's basically the same principle that causes them. So what you want to do here is you want to get your blade down, just put light pressure on here and scrape. Light pressure and scrape, and you can see right here all the little flakes that are coming off of it, and I could feel it already. It's gone. It's basically gone. What you have left is basically glue. Now, basically what you got to remember here is light pressure. Let the blade do the work. Usually seam lines and mold lines they're both very fine. You know, they're not really huge. Here's another part of it, look right there. And I'll and scrape it. Wow. Now this one is more of a raised line, but on one side than the other. But same thing applies. Just let very light pressure, let the blade do the work. Run your fingernail across there, and that is smooth. And well, you can't see it because of the glue line, but you run your finger across, you could definitely feel it. And you go across with the light on there. There's definitely, like right here, boom, definitely you can see the difference. Okay, so that's using your hobby knife. Budget method number 2. This is just to let you know, this is gonna be a real quick video. It should be by my standards. We're gonna do the sanding stick method. I'm using one of my DIY sanding sticks. I got 220, 1500. Start with the 220 side first. We'll use this part right here. Get rid of it. Well, let's see. Let's try this part right here along the transmission housing. And what you want to do here is start with your rough side or your medium grit, and you finish with your fine side. So let's say right here, let's do this. And you sand along the seam. And again, you do light pressure. See, you can already tell that that is going. And then you come along with the fine side. Definitely a difference. That looks like there's no line there at all of any kind. But there was just now. So that is how you use a DIY sanding stick for it. Now let's talk about nail buffers. Right here, I got this at the dollar store. It was in the, the beauty aisle. Modeler's best friend, I keep saying it. The beauty aisle at Dollar General. But why do these work well for finishing plastic? Well, nail buffers work well because they're designed to take rough surfaces and make them smooth and shiny. They're designed to take freshly cut fingernails and make them smooth and shine them up. And after removing a mold line with a hobby blade or sanding stick, a few passes with one of these can help blend everything together and leave the plastic looking much cleaner. So right there and right there, right there, right here, and right here are our 2 lines that we took off. So we'll run the nail buffer over it like this, then we'll run it like that. I mean, look at that. That looks like it's ready for some primer and paint. Let's look at this one here, okay? We'll start with the rough side. First of all, I forgot something. Let's run the sanding stick over it. And we go over it with the polishing side. Okay. Now we take our nail buffer and we go over it a bit and hit it with the polishing side. There you go. It looks a little on the rough side, but see if we can, there we go. Just hit it with some fine. But if you don't have a sanding stick, one of these will work. And that, well, actually, the reason you see a line is because what I'm going to have to do with these is this guy, whoever put them together, whoever had this kit before me, didn't put these together evenly. On this side here, this right here, this side is higher than this side slightly. And then here, this side is higher than this side. So really, he had both of them crooked. So I gotta take this apart, use my extra thin, meld it apart, and redo them. So, but that's basically, you get the picture. And basically, nail buffers, the benefits of these, they're inexpensive, they're easy to find. Any Dollar General store, any beauty aisle will have them. They're available in multiple grits. Okay, you have everyone has a rough side here, and a polishing side. You can get differing grits on each stick. They're great for smoothing out and sanding scratches, and they can restore a slight sheen to bare plastic if you have, something like this, like a 1500 grit, which is made for that. And they're less aggressive than coarse sandpaper, and that makes them beginner friendly. So I've showed you demonstrated your three basic methods of getting rid of mold lines. You have your hobby knife, the edge of your hobby knife, sanding stick, and nail buffer. So I'm going to turn around now and we'll finish this by telling you about biggest mold line mistakes, how to find hidden mold lines, and we'll do a quick recap before we put a bow around this. So we'll be right back. All right, and welcome back, and let's talk about some of the mistakes you can make while removing mold lines. Number one mistake is sanding too aggressively. You see, many modelers see a mold line, they want to attack it with some coarse sandpaper and use way too much pressure. Well, the problem with this is it removes more plastic than necessary. Usually a mold line is very little plastic left on there. It doesn't take that much to remove it. And thusly, if they use too much pressure, it creates deep scratches that are hard to fix. And while you're sanding with this coarse sandpaper at high pressure or hard pressure, you can remove details that are around that mold line, such, as panel lines, bolt heads, or emblems. And you don't want to do that. Let's put it like this. As I said, a mold line is usually very little amount of excess plastic. So you don't need to go at it like you're reshaping the part. Remember, light pressure and patience will usually give you a much better result. Now, the second mold line mistake is flattening round parts. These are especially common on roll bars, exhaust pipes, suspension parts, limbs of figures like arms and legs on figures, and especially tires. The problem here is sanding on one spot too long is gonna make it flat. And once that shape is altered, especially on a rounded part, it is real hard. I mean, almost impossible to get it back to the original shape. And then if you do get it back into the original shape, it's going to be out of scale. So when you're working with round parts, remember that you're just trying to remove the mold line. You're not trying to change the shape of the part. So while you're sanding, remember, light pressure and rotate that part. Okay, rotate that part along that curve so you don't put it out of shape. And the number 3 mistake that we make when getting rid of mold lines are missing mold lines before painting. And this is probably the most frustrating mistake because you discover it after you put in a lot of work. The problem is that primer and paint just make those things stand out. And what looked fine on bare plastic stands out on a painted model. And fixing it usually means sanding, repriming, and repainting. So one of the biggest mistakes you can make is thinking that you've removed all your mold lines, only to have paint bring them out. That's why it's worth taking a few minutes. Take your fingernail, run it along the part, and if it hits something you know you missed, that's not supposed to be there, of course. If it hits a mold line, if it hits a panel line, no big deal, you know. If it hits a raised detail, no big deal. If it's hit something that's supposed to be smooth, then you missed something. Now, fortunately, there's a trick for finding these hidden mold lines that I'll tell you about next. These here are pro tips for finding hidden mold and seam lines. Number 1, use primer. Okay? Primer brings out everything. It's great for revealing not only mold lines, but sinkholes or sink divots and splay and all sorts of imperfections. Primer will bring them out. So why does primer work? Bare plastic itself can hide imperfections, and because it reflects light unevenly. A thin coat of primer creates an uniform surface. And then mold lines and scratches and sink marks and seams become much easier to spot because the light's being reflected evenly. So let's put it this way. One of the easiest ways to find hidden mold lines is to spray the part with a light coat of primer. Once the surface is all one color, any remaining mold lines will stand out a lot more clearly. The second way to spot hidden mold lines is side lighting. This is one of the simplest and most overlooked techniques. And why it works: light hitting a part from the side creates shadows, and even a tiny raised mold line will cast a small shadow. And this can reveal flaws that are otherwise invisible with overhead lighting. So how do you do this? Well, try holding a part under a desk lamp and look at it with the light coming from the side. A low angle light will reveal mold lines and scratches that you couldn't see before. The third way to find hidden mold lines is just, I stated it before, run your fingernail along a seam. Your sense of touch actually can find flaws a lot better than your sense of sight. And why does it work? Well, number 1 is obvious. A mold line is usually a raised seam or a raised edge. and your fingernail will catch on that edge or that ridge, even if it's difficult to see. And this is especially true on curved parts where reflections can hide imperfections. If you're not sure whether a mold line is gone or not, just simply rub your fingernail across the area. If your nail catches on anything, you have some more cleanup to do. So let's wrap this whole thing up, this whole section up, between a quick coat of primer, some side lining, and the fingernail test. You'll catch most mold lines before you paint. And that is when you want to have your model clean and clear of them, is when you paint. And that's a lot easier than fixing them after you paint. So let's put a bow on this by recapping what we've learned. First, we looked at hobby blade scraping, using the edge of your blade, light pressure. You can quickly remove mold lines without removing too much plastic. Next, we covered sanding sticks. They're inexpensive, they're easy to control, and great for blending the surface and removing any remaining traces of the mold line. And finally, we looked at the nail buffers and other household items like them. They're budget friendly, easy to find, perfect for polishing away those scratches and giving the plastic a smooth finish. So hobby blade scraping is great for removing the mold line itself. Sanding sticks help to smooth and refine the area, and nail buffers put the finishing touches on the surface. And all this without spending a lot of money on specialized tools. So that brings me to the question, what's your favorite way of getting rid of mold lines? Do you use sanding sticks, scraping, or some other way? Let me know in the comments. I always love hearing from you, you know that. Remember, you can find all the links to all the information I have and all the discount codes, which I have 2 right now that are active. You'll find all those in the video description. The next video will be our YouTube tutorials, actually making the model harder. We'll take a deep dive into that next time. So that's all I have for this one, folks. You know what we always say around here. Never stop pushing your modeling boundaries, and until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.